Hello there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an Object Show fan that has barely watched any Object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Welcome in to another installment in the series where we discuss object shows, new and old, famous and unknown. Now, today's episode is going to be all about the BFDIA comeback because in my current standing, I never watched a BFDIA episode since 5e, since the ones from years and years ago, which means that there's a lot to get to in the BFDIA side of things, and we have to watch it, we have to review it. Those are important episodes, very popular episodes, right? And I know that one of the premises of the series is that this does delve outside of just the range of reviewing Jack and Jellyfy, an animation epic, right? And it's like, okay, are we doing again another video where we're focusing entirely on Jack and Jellyfy? Yeah, we are, but you have to understand, as soon as I'm caught up with BFDIA, I will not have to review Jack and Jellyfy again. Like, I'll pretty much be done. I might make a video once on the minis, but other than that, it's like, it'll be done. Like, that is gonna be it. So only the new releases that will cover, and we were able to talk about all other object shows. Because with I'm relatively caught up, and we don't need to do a lot of catch up. So it's just this BFDIA catch up is, however, gonna take up quite a bit of time because there's so many BFDIA episodes, bro, that we're gonna need to do, and I can't do that many at once because they are still long and they are still big. They released a lot of them over the past 2 years, right? So that is a thing. That is a situation. But yeah, today there wasn't any proper new object show release. Now, okay. Another thing I have to discuss. I'm going to be completely transparent. Currently, the method I'm using to get new audio show releases is on the Object Show community Discord, because there's a channel called New Episode Releases, which I check and I go with that. Now, I don't think it's the best method to find the new episodes of Object Shows, because sure, it'll have mostly the big things there, but as far as the smaller shows, it's a little bit random because there isn't really that thorough of a check in like what is a new object show release. Like they don't check that often. It's just people send them the episodes and they add it in, which means that again anything major is going to be there, but the smaller stuff, yeah, it's going to be a little bit random, and a lot of it is going to get missed out on that channel. However, I currently don't think I can find another way, another method that has the new audio show releases in a more accurate setting that I know of. If it exists, absolutely let me know. I don't know it though, however, because those playlists are currently not updating with that much new stuff. It's only really updating with like the big stuff like a teapot. And yeah, that channel, it just seems like the best bet. So far we're going to be going into that channel until I ever discover a better method of finding new object show releases, because I want to be able to discuss the smaller object shows. You know, that's one of the things I enjoy about it. The fact that we aren't necessarily discussing Jack and Jellyfy always. Is that we're sometimes talking about something small. You know, last time we talked about Battle for McDonald's, and I'm sure in the past few days there have been many Battle for McDonald's out there, but you know, like shows of that caliber in terms of like view count, but I don't know them, so I can't really find them and discuss them. So it's a little bit unfortunate. So as we've stated, the first episode of today is going to be BFDIA 6 Well Rested. This is going to be a pretty special watch considering of course it's been like probably 7 years since I first watched BFDIA 5e. So seeing how BFDIA 6 is going to be imperative, is going to be important, and I hope it was a good episode. I think it was, because otherwise, I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out by watching it, and I guess I'll come back with my opinion. You know, this is one of the special things. I literally don't know what this episode is, and I think it's pretty cool considering it's 2 years old and has like 1 billion views, but it still is the way it is. Let's watch it. Hello there. I have just come back from watching BFDIA 6 well rested for the first time, even though the episode is extremely old. And, of course, the main discussion point with BFDIA 6 is that it is a comeback episode after 10 years of a break. Now, if I'm not mistaken, BFDI 6 was written, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Like, BFDI 6 was an episode that was written. Like, there was an original script of BFDI 6, and then it got scrapped, I think, in the animation phase or something because it was high effort or whatever. But because there is a video about like scrap the BFDI 6 scenes or whatever. So that but the fact that they made the scenes, surely you would have written the episode by then. So I'm thinking that that was going on. However, this is not that script. I'm pretty sure the original BFDI 6 script is different. This is a different episode they wrote. Um, because as well, BFDIA 6, it would have been a 10-year-old script, and even though people like BFDIA, it's still pretty old. So the main thing I like about this episode is so nonchalant. Like I was a little bit worried when we like an episode like BFDIA 6 that obviously such a big deal, right? To Jack and Jelly fans, BFDIA fan that it has come back, but in general, it couldn't be a big like they couldn't make a big deal about BFTA is back when it's there because it doesn't make sense timeline wise, and you don't want to gloat about it too much. So only the first scene where the date switches, which is cool. That's fine since that's a editing thing. Fries mentions it once as like a gag. It was a little bit of an awkward gag, but in general it was fine. And then there's also a reference in the wheel, in the prize wheel. No, in the challenge wheel. That one of the challenges was wait 10 years for the next episode as like a reference to it. But other than that, it plays it nonchalant. It just goes, yo, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. And it does good things for sure. Now, it's a little bit weird looking at BFDIA. Like analyzing BFDIA is inherently different to analyzing something like Teapot because Teapot is very clearly like the story based serious thing that is going on. So when I'm analyzing something like Teapot 20 yesterday, you got to talk about lore, you got to talk about what's going on, what actions are happening, do they make sense, and all that stuff. BFDIA and like post-play BFB or whatever, because Dan Jellyfy has had this two-show system for a while now, where it's like they have silly show and they have serious show, because they know that's the divide. Like some people want jokes and comedy, and some people want lore and storytelling, but like doing both is a whole different story that isn't really like it's difficult to make both. So BFDI heavily goes on the air of silly. Even back in BFDI 5e, of course, it was old and all that jazz. But yeah, beyond elimination, it just goes back to a challenge. The challenge is also pretty creative for the whole BFDI 6 is, well rested. I like that challenge concept for BFDI 6 because it's like it's been a long time. Like the team was well rested and the challenge is about getting rest and all of that stuff. So, what happens in the episode? They start by falling down from the sky because you remember that's where the last episode ends, the post-credit scene, because they all climb up the gigantic hill to get to the top of Yo-Yo Mountain or whatever. And then they get back, they eat all the Yo-Yo berries, they get back, the elimination. What happened in the elimination? So Pop-Ball gets out. So if if I remember 5e from a billion years ago, Yo-Yo Ball did the thing where they were like, "Oh, I always win prizes, so I'm gonna throw the challenge so that I can win a prize as the eliminated contestant," which doesn't really make much sense. Of course, it's a decision because first of all, the prizes have never been that good, in BFDIA either. So like, it's not that desirable of a thing. And then, of course, it's completely self-sabotage. Like, you'll get a prize, sure, but not if you're evil. But, oh well, decisions were certainly made. It was one of the more rigged eliminations because it's so obvious Popo's getting out. Like, Popo ends up getting so many more votes than, like, everybody else combined. I know these episodes were also around in IDFB, but what was the vote? let me check. It was 1,400. It was like triple what anybody else got, which just points out how unbelievably crazy that vote was. So Rocky switches team to the Woe Bunch, and then they go and live in Yo-Yo Land forever. One of the interesting things I find about BFDIA is everybody knows Yo-Yo Land. You know, it's like they know the landmarks of Yo-Yo Land, of Yo-Yo City, even if it's completely abandoned. Like Yo-Yo City's abandoned. That's the thing about it. I hope we'll get to find out why in an episode, because I don't think we know why Yo-Yo Land is abandoned, because everybody seems to know. Like Ruby knows a lot of the buildings, like the what is it called? The yummy what is yummy filtration system, knows about the pillow supermarket they never end up reaching, but they know about the market and all that stuff. Like they know about these buildings in Yo-Yo City, even though they are not Yo-Yo City residents necessarily. So it's kind of interesting. Like why do they know? I guess I mean hopefully we'll find out. It's like 1 million more episodes, but currently these are my thoughts as of just having watched BFDIA 6. Um, the challenge is to find a cozy building to sleep in. Now, interesting thing about this challenge is that it's actually like okay, technically, by the rule set of the challenge, you do not like it is completely pointless, pretty much, because the contestants are current. The idea of the challenge is for some reason the contestants are they're trying to find the nicest way to sleep, even though that is completely not necessary because the entire winning idea of the challenge is if you just are asleep in general. Like if you are sleeping, you win the challenge. Like you are safe. So whether you're sleeping comfortably or you're just not sleep, like you could have just literally plonk on the floor, gone to bed. Maybe you should have left the other teams, right, so you don't get caught with them. But like you could have just plonk, sleep on the ground. It's not comfortable, but you'll sleep, right? So like like free smart, okay, like they don't need to go get the greatest pillows of all time. Like they could just sleep in the super van. That's fine. Like it's not the most comfy thing in the world, but they could do it. I mean, they end up sleeping high above the air in balloons. Like it's but so that is a little note. Animation wise, this episode it definitely feels clean. It's a very cleaned up BFDIA style. Like it is still BFDIA. And I like how in some scenarios they don't try to keep too much graphical consistency. The main part that I'm thinking of when I say this is on 10-minute mark when they recovered tennis ball from the HPRC. Like you can tell that the glue is there in one shot, then when they turn to the cranky shot, there's not there anymore, and then it's there again. It's like it's fine, It gives that air of like, okay, we're not stressing too much about the details. Because you don't need to stress too much about the details, right? Like it's all there, It's all for fun. It's all jokes. We get it. Right, like BFDI is it's much more of a okay. Does this make that much sense? Technically, not really, but we get it. Right, that's kind of how BFDIA ends up working around. But then they get to the challenge. Headphones are placed so that play the worst sound ever or something. And they also throw spike balls thanks to the spike speaker box. Which, by the way, I thought the spiky speaker box is this. I thought the spiky speaker box was the spike ball speaker box. I thought it was a triangle. No, was it not a triangle? Like it was like a green triangle speaker box in like BFDI or something. But apparently it's like a small square according to the advertisement that Yellowface did, which is interesting, to be honest. Uh, but either way, Nito ends up placing those headphones on gelatin and on Ice Cube. And then they go over to try to find anything. Now, there's a lot of jokes in this episode, especially with with the sound as well of the headphones, like it plays at inconvenient times and it plays just sort of as a gag. And like for example, when this free smart super van is driving, it drives in somewhat random spots, and it's fun visual gags. My favorite of the jokes is probably the one from the team. Well, I should do it. I don't remember the team names. Oh God, Team No Name, right? Yeah. I like the whole like infinite loop they have going on at the hotel where they have the rooms that, by the way, they get rated 2,763 overall, and then they get chased around by Evil Leafy. Go in a room, Evil Leafy gets in, leave. Go in a room, Evil Leafy gets in, leave. Evil Leafy go go in a room. It's all of that scenario and stuff. So that's pretty cool. I enjoy that loop. Free Smart, they're just kind of driving around most of the time. They don't end up ever getting to the Yo-Yo Mall, to be honest. Like they end up stopping partway through their mission. Like, and then you can see some of the things that don't make that much sense, like technically, how did Ruby jump from the Yummy Filtration Pack all the way back up to midair? Nah, we don't know, but whatever. It's like, it's all of these mini details are not important for the bigger picture. Like, for example, sure, like the building, right, that the Wobunch are in, it can form weather. Okay, sure, let's say that. Let's go with that. Why is it raining specifically on them? Like, why is it raining on Spongy specifically and not like a global thing? I don't know. But like, yeah, it's one of the things. They get the sleeping beds that apparently cost 70,000 payments of 70,000. The dehumidifier that is suddenly there. I mean, I guess it would make sense that it'd be there. I mean, if the if they knew the building would have had the whole thing, then yeah, putting up the dehumidifier makes enough sense. Like, for example, like again, there's a lot of things where there's small decisions that is like, for example, when Free Smart was sleeping and they're going to tell the ghost story, like, why can't they just fight? Why can't they just literally punch them and stop them from leaving? I don't know. Also, I don't know what's going on with Evil Leafy either, because the ghost story got told by who told the ghost story? It was like Coiny, right? Yeah. Which is interesting because Nito doesn't think Evil Leafy's real. So I don't really. I'll be honest. BFDIA 5 is 1 million years old. So I don't really remember who Evil Leafy was chasing before. It was like Spongy, but that was Wobunch. But Corny was there, no? So like surely Corny would know it was real. She was. I mean, Corny has to know about Evil Leafy before that. I mean, everybody knows about Evil Leafy, but like, it's, dude, I don't remember, unfortunately. They're gonna need to get BFDIA. We're gonna need to start, getting in the thick of it again. This is kind of that awkward first episode where it's like, okay, what's going on again? It kind of happens. So they all, eventually Team No Name managed to go into the fancy room. They sleep there, and then Ice Cube plays this sweet little lullaby to send them all to sleep in midair because we wired the headphones while they were all drowning, as you do, of course. Yeah, another thing. Yeah, I don't know why they never just left the van if it was drowning. Like, they can do that. Ruby did that like 3 seconds ago. Like, you can jump out and get back in. It's just one of those plot points where it's like, for the sake of funny, we will. Oh, they don't necessarily consider that option. But as far as a watchable experience, it is. Now, devoting videos, by the way, one of a very interesting thing to bring back in 2023, considering the like and dislike videos are quite interesting, as they currently can't use annotations. I don't remember if they used annotations back in the day, but they were a feature. Like, you could use annotations. You can't use end cards because there's too many characters to make an end card work, and it wouldn't fit with the screen at the end. So that is a thing. Now, in general, we have already mostly chilled out on the voting systems needing to be ultra accessible. If I'm not mistaken, Teapot voting system is now, it's a Google form. It's fine. People get it. There's enough viewers out there. Like, we've scrapped comment sections. We've scattered. Um, I was originally a little bit worried that the like and dislike, like dislikes being turned off on videos, would have made these these eliminations a lot more weird. But it ends up that it's not really actually a problem because they're turned off overall. So like and dislikes are turned off, which makes I think the most sense. So I guess we'll see. I'm curious if there's going to be any reaction to the number of votes in the next episode, because surely it's going to be way more than the few thousand that voted on, like the 10,000 ish that voted on BFDIA 5 at the end of it. The OG group there. Then the post-credit scene is they want to start a video diary. Me personally, I think this was too early. In my personal view of it, BFDIA 6, the diary was a bit too early because like a lot of these plot points, they feel like should they have been already set up? Maybe the Yo-Yo Land one, but them doing the video diary they are. Because the reason why this has to be set up is because of IDFB. IDFB 1 is a show where you kind of see what happens in the aftermath of BFDIA, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, wait, did IDFB take place in the aftermath of the entirety of BFDI or did BFDI 6? I don't know, but it takes place in the aftermath of something. So you can kind of see them living around, doing their thing. They're going to the locker losers or whatever to try to revive someone. But yeah, I understand why they have to. Of course, they have to set out the fact that they're doing a video vlog with the lens cap on, so that eventually 90B1 they can take it off and do it correctly. So they're trying to keep it continuity wise. It's very hard for them to think about it because, like, even the complaint with Teapot 20 yesterday is that it doesn't fully make a lot of sense. Like, for example, for protecting X, but then what about early BFB when 4 was all up hating on X, right? It's like it's all of that situation where they've made so much random jokes as lore that now, like years later, when they're trying to write something, they have to now go back and remember the detail, and sometimes you'll forget them. But anyway, BFDI 6 is definitely trying to make sure Idea B can exist within the lore. I think it does pretty good job at it, to be honest. I don't think it necessarily flops it too much. It does pretty well. A few extra notes that I found interesting. Yeah, I find interesting the usage of arm waving to open the fancy room as a detail because in B&B, we have the whole everybody thinks that arm waving is because you don't care. A few people do it to spite teardrop, but it's like it is a general thing where they don't necessarily where they think that the arm waving means you don't really care. So it's interesting to see it there. I wonder if they're eventually gonna make something happen so that it becomes a situation. And secondly, yeah, no, the guys are good. They're well timed. I think that this episode did a pretty good job in terms of the joke. Like it's all kind of dumb, but it's the fun dumb. Like when they stare at the evil leafy shaped painting, and it appears. The adverts that there's maybe like one too many adverts, but that's kind of how it rolled, right? They had random adverts, and seeing another classic style advert is nice. It's a little bit of fan service, that people that people enjoy. Seeing the whole scenes with like the constantly repeating sentences and stuff, and even in the random 3D weight of it, right? That is BFDI is known for. Like they were writing episode, but at the same time, Carrie was into the whole 3D modeling AI thing, right? Because I'm not mistaken, Yo-Yo City is AI, but it was like this whole this whole thing, and it was it's pretty cool to see it again. So I think they did a pretty good job as far as the first episode. Like I didn't have major critiques. I don't know if other people thought they had critiques, like because I'll be like, this is one thing. This is why I don't want to necessarily, after I watch something, go research, write something about it. Like some other people are gonna do that, but like I give him my own like immediate opinion because it's the most pure opinion, because like I don't know what the general consensus of this is or even was. So like I get to directly say something, and maybe it's something other people think, maybe it's completely different opinion. But I think BFDI's reception is currently pretty good. So I agree if that's the conception. People thought it was bad. I disagree. I thought it was fun. So there we go. I think that's all I have to say for BFDI 6. I've talked for a good amount about the BFDI comeback episode, as we are calling it. It was certainly pretty cool. All right, next up is gonna be BFDI 7, which we gotta watch. It is titled Intruder Alert. Now, I'm very interested by the thumbnail because, of course, it shows a yo-yo light, which you found out is very, very, very important. So, I guess we will have to see what is going on. It's called Intruder Alert. I guess I'll watch it, and by the next time I'll be back, we'll be here to discuss all about it. It's a bit shorter than the rest. Let's hit it. All right, welcome back. I have just watched BFDIA 7 Intruder Alert. Spoiler warning. I didn't give it for BFDIA 6 actually. These episodes they are a little bit old, but yeah. A spoiler warning for it. Now, very interesting show up here because like there isn't necessarily a timeline explanation for it. So okay, so here's the deal. There is the whole weird thing that goes on with BFDI about the fact that it does work under real time. However, this isn't in real time. This isn't like a past time. So I'm not sure when this is getting set, to be honest. Like I don't know what time what time is theoretically being made in, but let's just say that it all makes sense. So, they head into the elimination. TV gets sent away after after not being able to make a Cake and Steak song, which still isn't really a proper Cake and Steak song. One thing I didn't mention when talking about BFDI 6 is that the intro is now Yo-Yo Landy. I was taking the BFDI intro, of course, it was green, but now it's purple. So that's pretty cool. And then there's the whole thing about it. So the yo-yo light. So the main plot point here is that Ruby catches a yo-yo light and decides to keep it as a gift to the team. Of course, we find out in Teapot that's not the greatest idea of all time. But yeah, it turns out to keep the yo-yo light, which is this ultra powerful thing, and Tennisport wants the yo-yo light. So send off a Fiery with Gelatin to switch to the Free Smart team to try to get the yo-yo light. Now, before we do that, let's talk about Cake and Steak. So, Cake and Steak, the fact that, the voting count has increased by about 200,000, like 260,000 from the last episode, not a thing that they care about all that much. Like, they do, of course, point out this is the first time it's used, but, like, wow. Oh wait, Bommy actually wins the prize, surprisingly. I think it's pretty surprising. As we can tell with the prizes, they seem to be way closer in terms of votes than the elimination one. Like Bommy wins by 200, and then there's Yellowface and Pin like right there, like proper right there. So Bommy ends up turning purple thanks to the color wheel. Yellowface is not a big fan because of purple face. Then, eventually eliminated, it was Rocky, which barely got more votes to eliminate than Spongy. As far as the bottom two is concerned, that makes perfect sense as a bottom two. It was, it's that type of bottom two that it's just characters that not many people like that much. Rocky doesn't have much going on, usually, and Spongy less. So yeah, Rocky gets sent to nowhere because the Tiny Loser Chamber gets locked up by TV, which gets sent away after they made Gumball mad, and then decided to lock the door so nobody else can get in now. So the challenge ends up being to make a loser chamber. Then Pretty Smart drops down. A little guy with the balloons, pretty cool. And yeah, so they go on and make the loser chamber. Now let's start off here. Yeah, let's talk about Free Smart. So Fiery and Gelatin decide to troll, basically. They try to troll by simply telling them that it's the wrong content. They really do not focus on trying to steal the yo-yo light, unfortunately. it's like they don't give too much of an effort. They get like distracted like half the time and they just start trolling them. I'm gonna be honest. This is also the time I'm gonna point it out is that in this episode there is a little bit of weirdly modern lingo going on, like when golf ball and tennis ball said like we're nerding out too hard, or like when Ruby says truer words have never been spoken. Some of it feels like more modern language that is that maybe feels a little weird when placed in a timeline where this episode should theoretically be 2013. um so it's a little bit weird, but in general it's fine. All right, Wobbly Bunch decides to go back to the spaceships. They go drink the water. Then can't drink the water because water is rainwater and is not good. So decide to come back and get purple flavored water. After a bit of trolling, and they drink it. The purple water ends up being gunpowder from Bommy because Yellowface was not happy about Bommy being purple. So then they construct an ultra epic death machine by with the scraps from the machine with from the scraps from the flying machine, like the spaceships. Okay, yeah. So they construct an absolute 9 out of 10, and then they win the challenge. In the meantime, the other team, Team No Name, gets completely distracted and doesn't build anything properly. So they only get 5 minutes to try to build a fortress. They build a not great fortress. Freeze Fire doesn't build anything because they don't know the challenge. Because Fiery and Gelatin completely trolled them this time to do jumping jazz. They do it. They do the thing. Um, I I don't know if you get me. I like this type of humor. That's just like it's a sort of looping thing. I don't know why. I think it's funny when it's like okay, it technically could go on forever. With just like say wrong challenge, do it. Say wrong challenge, do it. Kind of like how I praised in the last episode the rooms going on. It's like say go in the room, leave, go in the room, leave. Right? Like I don't know why I like that type of humor. It also again apparently causes 2,763, but in a way I think with the numbers. So yeah, there's a lot. Don't forget the number, dude. So eventually the dead machine wins the challenge and that becomes the new default TLC. The yo-yo light still does not get grabbed by Ruby. They catch on eventually to the thing, and the yo-yo light gets remained by Ruby. So then the teams are up for Elam. Book, Fiery, Gelatin, Ice Cube, Pencil, and well, Ruby. Now I don't know who is getting eliminated here, because this is a pretty interesting elimination. Because I mean, usually I would guess that one of the eliminated contestants would be Fiery or Gelatin, because they're the ones that are that they were trolling, they were causing the situation, and I think Gelatin does stick around for the rest of it because I see them in thumbnails if I'm not mistaken. So I think Fiery is gone. I believe it could be Ice Cube because Ice Cube is the character that less people find that interesting I think in the Woe Bunch group, right? Book, Pencil, Ruby, and Ice Cube. All four of those are pretty big characters in terms of support. Fire and Gelatin are also characters with a lot of support, but I think Ice Cube is the least one. So I think elimination. I think it's probably for this episode, maybe Fiery, but it could be Ice Cube if people just don't care about Ice Cube that much. Maybe that's what I'm gonna be guessing. Heading into BFDIA 8. The prize. I don't know. The prize really depends. I guessing Pencil get a Ruby because Ruby had it. Maybe Gelatin. I don't know. Genuinely the prize. I don't know. So then the post-credit scene. They all eat fiery chili peppers for some reason. It doesn't mix well with the gunpowder, and they all literally explode. By the way, extremely pretty shot at the end of the Aurora Borealis going on. Whoever animated that did an absolutely amazing thing. And then we go on to the next best thing, which is the WTF, the Weak Trembling Fortress, which Rocky gets sent to. So that was the general recap of the episode. Now, what do I think of it? It's not got that much. There's not got that many gags in it. Not as many. Like there's still a bunch, but I think that BFDIA 6 is definitively better. Like it's just got more like stuff going on in terms of the humor, you know? When like in this episode, sure there's a bit, but I think significantly more relaxed, in terms of gags. The episode's fine. I'd probably give it I don't know what rating I'd give it, but it's fine. It's very watchable. It does it I think maybe feel a bit longer than 20 minutes, which is interesting because the 30-minute episodes don't feel as long as 30 minutes, but this one did. But in general, I think it's a little bit of a weaker episode because it's not got that many jokes in it. Like mostly it takes one joke and then keeps it moving. By the way, oh yeah, Ruby does end up going on the planet of Orion Nebula, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the planet that those little fellas that eventually get slashed in T-19 are, if I'm not mistaken, that's that planet. But and they also have to say Uranus very interestingly to not make the funny. Now, but yeah, as far as the episodes, I think it's a little bit weaker than BFDA 6. However, it's a very watchable episode. There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't, I think, stick out. Like, I think, but it's one of those episodes where I think by the time I've reached the modern BFDIA, I don't think I remember it that much, you know? But it's alright. So, it's also a very important episode because, of course, it's the fabled yo-yo light. That's extremely important. We get to see some Carrie drawing, I'm not mistaken. It's also if not mistaken, apparently, according to it, it's still entirely written by Carrie, which is cool. I don't know if they still write the BFDIAs today. We'll find out, I guess, if they still write the BFDIAs today. But when I get to them, but I think they do because they don't write Teapot. If I'm not mistaken, Michael and Carrie don't write Teapot. At least, in there's a few times where they haven't. Well, BFDIA, I think they do, or at least Carrie completely doesn't write Teapot. AK writes BFDIA, or Michael doesn't write BFDIA and writes TPA or something. I don't really remember. But either way, they have big crews now and stuff, and it's all of that jazz. Oh yeah, I never ended up mentioning the gag with Yellowface. Ended up 200% off on the purple powder. So I ended up giving Needle money. Okay, I kind of like that one. But yeah, you see, there aren't that many gags to mention, so I haven't had that much to talk about. One thing that I am going to talk about is I find the usage of music really interesting. To be honest, the usage of music in BFDIA is really interesting, and I'm glad that they kept with the Kevin MacLeod, because it's very easy to forget the roots and go like, okay, we have composers, we can literally make our own music by now, right? Because of Michael, which has the ability to make music. But like, yeah, there's just a vibe of Kevin MacLeod music, especially when it's the same music that is used in other episodes. It's like there is a certain vibe to it, Kevin MacLeod is the GOAT. Absolutely, in terms of the music made, that free royalty music. So, like, yeah, it works extremely well for the vibe of the show because the vibe of the show, it was somewhat constructed with it or around it. And even if it wasn't constructed with it in mind, it was constructed like it has become part of its identity by just being there since its beginning, right? Um, I also like the gag where they ripped the pin. I like that. That's pretty fun. Uh, murder. But in general, yeah, I don't think there's that much else to really know on this episode here because it's still a little bit shorter. There's just kind of less to talk about it here in BFDI 7 Intruder Alert. I guess we can just move on to the next here, to be honest. So the next episode that we have to look at is, well, BFDIA 8. I think one of the shorter BFDIA episodes, 18 minutes long. It's called Meaty, which is also a very short title. A few of the BFDIA titles, they're quite short. To be honest, like they've been two words, one word, and looking at the other ones, they're not that long either. They like maximum like 3, which is interesting considering titles for like teapot sometimes are like tremendously long, like getting Puffball to think about roller coaster. So seeing like titles that are just extremely tiny, like one word. And I think one of the modern titles is literally just an emoji. But yeah, let's head into it. Let's watch BFDIA, and when I come back, I will have watched it and I will have opinionated on it. All right, welcome in. I have just watched BFDIA 8 Meaty. Now, what do I have to say about it? So this is a relatively interesting episode. So let's start off with the eliminate. Let's start with the elimination. Let's go there. So everybody goes to the top of the Eiffel Tower to go to the dance house. They get there mostly by YOLOing it there, and also drive there with the Ultra card because you can win the lottery now because the lottery exists. There's a lottery box that exists now and all of that stuff. So that is pretty cool that there's the whole lottery box, and I think Lewis won it. Lewis plot point was not something I was expecting, but in BFDIA you have to be ready for everything. Then Ruby ends up winning the prize, if I'm not mistaken, by like how much? By 100 votes. So yeah, I'm telling you, these votings, they're super tight. Like the like voting, the prize voting, it's always down to the wire. Ruby ends up winning the prize that is to not get reassembled in the wait, that is to get reassembled in the past for sure, because Ruby dies. Still, nobody got their yo-yo light. The Fiery forgot to do that because Fiery just asked very nicely. The asbestos joke is pretty funny. I enjoy it. And then Fiery gets out eventually by a little bit. I predicted this, unfortunately. I like Fiery, but yeah, I mean, with the way they wrote that episode, it just gotta be. Technically, Gelatin does more trolling, but Fiery does the ultimate trolling, right? And has the final say. So yeah, I think makes the most sense that Fiery would get out. Even though it's a surprisingly close margin to Pencil, to be honest. Like, it's not that far away from it. So then, that was Cake and Steak, and we head into the challenge of BFDIA 8 after Fiery gets sent into the WTF as a metal with Rocky. I mean, I'm presuming they can just leave the WTF. I don't know why they would stay there. I mean, maybe they'll get sent, but maybe like speaker boss is gonna go like, no, you did a no or something. But either way, they're in the WTF now, and I guess they're staying there in principle. So Fiery Speaker Box is unable to keep hosting because they're just too sad that Fiery got eliminated because they are a Fiery Speaker Box. Now, this is one of the things about BFDIA, and honestly, just kind of a BFDI trope in general, but especially BFDIA, since it doesn't have a set host, is that, yeah, there's kind of a hosting roulette, depending on the episode, it kind of changes who's hosting. At this point, we were honestly on quite a long stretch of having Fiery Speaker Box as the host, so we change it back yet again to a Puffball Speaker Box because Penso somehow has the magnet that only attracts one thing, except when it doesn't. It attracts the knife out of the Puffball Speaker Box for that's like 1 million miles away. It is fun to think about the fact that yes, technically, Puffball is screaming for 10 years. Again, I think it's been 3 months according to a line. I think in this episode there was a line that said like it's been 3 months or something. So I think the episodes are. I think we're treating BFDIA as if there was a monthly episode. I think. Because that's roughly how it would have played out, right? Like it would have been like an episode per month of BFDIA if it had a perfectly scheduled window. So I think that's what's going on. But because then like if it was 3 months ago from 8, that would be 7, 6, 5. Like you see, we'd be in BFDA 5 3 months ago. So that's I think the timeline that they are using. That I was a little bit confused about when I think I was reviewing BFDA 7. So that's all good. So then the challenge becomes painting the Eiffel Tower. Now various teams use their own strategies. One team goes on and drives on a car, and like Fries drives the car while Tennis Ball is throwing paint down. Meanwhile, the Woe Bunch ends up having the strategy of exploding Balmy because is now filled with red paint as part of the prize from the last challenge. Meanwhile, the other team, Woe Bunch, is what does Woe Bunch even do? Woe Bunch eventually is trying to find a way to. Oh no, has the laser, which then turns into a paint gun. Yes. And then eventually after that stops working, ends up running out of paint, so has the idea of shaking the entirety of it around of the tower around to get into the little bucket that they made on accident. So now here I'm gonna do a little bit of a critique, right? Which I found for some reason in this episode I noticed quite a bit. It's the sort of the pushback response, like the pushback to the pushback that characters do constantly in the writing of this episode, especially tennis ball. Because like what happens is that in BFDIA especially, there's so many ideas that don't make sense and that are weird, right? So sure, there's gonna be pushback from the characters, and it's like drive off a cliff, and it's like what? No, why would we do that? And then the other character just says, "What? Stop! Just do it!" And then it's just you do it. Like there's no resistance at all. And sometimes you notice, like tennis ball especially, just constantly is like, "Oh, we shouldn't do that," and then does it anyways. Like I can't build a shield, so then they build the shield anyways. I mean, it's not a good shield, but they still do it. So like, it's kind of very, very weird. Same thing goes with gelatin, for example. Gelatin in the steakhouse goes like, "Is there a smell?" Courtney says no, and it's like, okay, I guess there isn't. Like there's like one line of memory basically within these characters, and then they just immediately just go, and it's like kind of just kind of weird. And I don't know if I like it in this episode. It I think it's mildly overused in this episode, but in general, it's like okay. Or like for example, with the line that's just like Fry's going like, "Where's everybody? Where's golf on?" It's like, "Oh, they're probably on the ground." And it's like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." And it's weird overall. Same thing goes in the other direction, if I'm not mistaken. Like tennis ball says the idea to Fries, Fries goes no, and then tennis ball goes no, let's do it, and then Fries is like, okay. They do this a bit much in BFDIA for my BFDIA for my liking. So, it turns out that the Free Smart gets heavily distracted by the yo-yo light getting sort of at least tried to get stolen. Everybody dies, ends up dying together, because of that thing, because they drive into it to try to distract them, and it does successfully work. So the purple team keeps doing their thing. In the other one, oh yeah, they want to pick up some tinted glasses for yellow face so they can see purple. That's all makes sense. They end up just bringing yellow face away. We have this little recommended character who is this bar. I mean, I'm presuming it's. I guess we don't know if it's a recommended character, but it is a character that is new. The barbecue sauce that gives a little bit of lore on gelatin steak, which is not that it's there. It's nice that it exists. It's a little bit weird, because now it's like the Shade's house, and we know that back in BFB in future it turns back into the steakhouse. But oh well, I guess we'll see. We'll sort that out. Gelatin ends up paying Coiny with Coiny, ends up being stuck there. Pin and the gang don't. Pin and Yellowface don't end up noticing, I think, it within this episode. So I think Coiny's still stuck. Actually, no, no, no. They do notice at the end of it, but we don't quite get to see what happens after that. So Pink Team correctly wins, which is free smart because of the ring. But then Gelatin gives a pair of those glasses that turn purple into yellow to Puffball Speaker Box, which means that Puffball Speaker Box doesn't see purple teams. Doesn't see the wait. What team is which? How do I still not know? The Woe Bunch. Yeah, Woe Bunch is purple. Is color, which means that they sort of get cheated out of the win there, and the team No Name ends up being safe despite the fact that Gelatin is not on the team No Name There's a few good gags in this episode as well, for sure. I enjoy some jokes in it for sure. I like when Papa says that there's no eyes. I find it funny how like hand power recovers everybody's French because of the Eiffel Tower and just put a baguette around it. Like it's this kind of dumb jokes, but it's like sure, why not? If it's the vibe. The dumber the joke, usually the more it fits. Because yeah, the vibe of BFDI is super, super, super relaxed. But seeing that steakhouse interesting thing is pretty interesting because the rancid recession of 2013. I wonder what's going on with there. You see, it's like they make a few references to if time has passed as much as it has, and then it hasn't. Because if it's 2013, then we should have theoretically been like we should have theoretically seen they start that day. So what did the recession happen in the middle of BFDIA or something? I'm not sure, to be honest. It's pretty interesting. So then, after getting scammed out of the victory, Wobunch is up for elimination. Balmy, Coiny, Needle, Nickel, Pin, Yellowface, and Spongy. Now, in terms of my predictions for BFDA 9, which of course was released 1 million years ago, but I'll still make my predictions just, to act as a time capsule. Who do I think getting eliminated? Yellowface. Gotta be Yellowface, right? Surely. They're kind of evil because of the challenge. They're already not a big fan. It could be Spongy, but like they're trying to keep Spongy around. They're like, yo, Spongy is gonna have a scene. He's gonna have a conversation in the next episode because they did the whole thing where it's like, oh, we should have a talk with Corny. So I think they're trying to nudge people into keeping Spongy around and into getting rid of Yellowface. So I think it's gonna work. The prize, I'm guessing Coiny, because Coiny has the elite tier joke. I like Coiny playing with Coiny, so I think Coiny is gonna getting the title there. Also, yeah, elite tier gag at the end of the episode. By the way, putting the channel logo over golf ball is immensely good. I don't know how they even planned it out. But because it's kind of awkward to do because you have to put the end card and then take it away for the credits of the episode, which is certainly something. I don't know why they didn't put the credits and then the post credit scene. I don't know why like that felt like it would have been easier. But either way, maybe it's because of the playlist that's at the credits as well. Not really sure. I guess that's like YouTube semantics. My opinion on this episode is compared to BFDI 7, I think it's a bit more fun. I don't like some of it. I think some of its writing is a bit repetitive, as I pointed out with the whole pushback. Uh, and in general, no, I'm gonna call it the pushback pullback because I think it's cooler of a name. All right, so that's what I'm gonna call it. And it's got more interesting things going on, but in general, it's not like a big episode in terms of reporters. They're just in one place, and sometimes it's a little weird, like how they end up in the Eiffel Tower's location, and they give it one line of explanation when like BFDA 5 was literally like a full hour's worth of just trying to go those 2,763 miles, and you're telling me, oh no, they can just walk under the Guiki Canal or now, like, huh? It's a little random, but that's BFDIA, so I won't judge on it too hard. It's supposed to be fun. This episode, I think it was pretty fun. So I'm in my random ranking that I'm not making it. I think I mildly prefer it over. Okay, I think I don't BFDI 7 and this they're pretty equivalent, to be honest, when trying to compare them. But I think I prefer 7. I don't know what it is about it. I can't exactly tell you, but I think I prefer 7 overall. This episode felt a bit less. No, did I prefer 7? This episode is more fun. Okay, this episode is more fun than 7. However, I think I prefer 7 as an episode because we get to see more environments, more things, and it seems more useful as an episode for Lord in this episode. That's just kind of more fun value. But they're both episodes that gotta exist. So me personally, I mean, I'm hoping that BFDA 9 ends up being more on the lore aspect of it, right? Because like we're having fun episode, but more progression episode, right? Because BFDA 8 is just entirely let's have a conversation. But then BFDA 7, you start seeing the lore picking itself out and all of that jazz. I feel like my BFDIA section, like BFDIA is such like a hard to talk about. I'll be honest. Like I've had probably the weirdest ramble I think I've ever had about an episode. Which, look, that's what you signed up for. If you're listening to this right now, you signed up for this. You're 54 minutes into a BFDIA like discussion ramble thing, opinion reaction, and yeah, that's what you signed up here to do, and that is what I'm gonna deliver. BFDIA gives me these types of weird contradicting thoughts, just like how BFDIA itself is this weird kind of contradicting show. It makes sense, no? I mean, yeah. So I think that's probably I think that's my BFDIA review. I don't think there's much else I have to point out. I do like how they did the whole joke with the dodging, but like laterally rather than no, like with it dropping down rather than sideways. I think that's pretty cool as well. So they're trying to do stuff. Carrie definitely is so far apparently the only writer, but is doing I think a pretty good job at keeping up with this BFDI writing style in well, I mean, at the point 2023, as of that, oh my god, what a voice crack! As of that time, next one. All right, as I previously stated, the next episode we'll be watching is BFDIA 9. Now, that is in fact going to be the next episode that we're going to be taking a look at. It is called Catch These Hands. It is quite a bit longer than the other one, so I am interested to see how important it's going to be. I think it has more views than the episodes before it as well, so something's up with BFDIA 9. I guess I'm going to be finding out. Me from the future, take it away with your opinion and review of Catch These Hands. Hello there, I have just finished watching BFDIA 9. Catch These Hands. Now, what an interesting episode. It is 30 minutes. That feels like 30 minutes. It is a long one. It is a lengthy one. But let's start from the beginning, where we discovered that apparently the hand-powered recovery center, but it's French because of the Eiffel Tower. The characters from Street Smart, they are able to recover themselves because apparently the yo-yo light gives you powers, gives your spirit powers to remain alive even when you are dead, which is one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and genuinely is an interesting detail about a yo-yo light that I didn't know about. I mean, we have seen actual contestants hold on to yo-yo lights before, especially, the newbie crew. So I'm just saying that they should try to use something like this for like T-Paul or something, because that is an interesting detail that they just threw on there because of BFDIA 9. But like, I don't know, that is something very, very, very intriguing. Then eventually, Ruby barfs out acid and it ends up destroying the Eiffel Tower itself because apparently that prop was not necessary anymore, including the Clubhouse of Awesomeness. But they go in to do Cake and Steak. The intro remains the same. Lewis one, I don't know for how long, but I guess it's there. I'm not a big fan of it personally. I think it's kind of dumb, but and I like it when the Cake and Steak is like music because it's a song, it's cute. But whatever. BFDIA is such like a mishmash of things happening everywhere that it's an absolute chaos. Then the judges, Bommy ends up winning the prize by by a non-significant margin, by like a 300. I'm really surprised it was not coiny, like extremely surprised, but it was almost coiny by like 300, and then it turned out not to be corny. But as I've been saying, yeah, these prize votings, it's way more like differentiated. Bommy chooses Needle and Coiny to swap out the voice to, which I think is definitely their correct decision. Get to hear Coiny somewhere else. I don't know if maybe you should swap it out. I thought it would have been funnier if you swapped out Nickel and Coiny. That they should have done that, but oh well. Then the elimination votes is that as expected, Yellowface for being evil gets significantly the most amount of votes, 21,000 compared to 9,000 for Spongy. Uses a win token factory generator thing. And then eventually locks up Purpleface after Purpleface steals the win tokens, and then using an invention, Yellowface puts Purpleface in a box. Now, yet again, this is sort of trying to give a little bit of like context to future, right? Because like a lot of things have happened in the BFB timeline, and in BFB, of course, we know that in post-split BFB, in the Yellowface warehouse, there is a box with Face. Now here we get to see the origins of it. Apparently, it was created right there for Yellowface's Yellowface to lock up Purpleface. One of the things that I don't really understand that much is that it's apparently like the entirety of the Eiffel Tower shrunk down. Like, it's gone. Everything has evaporated. Everything has corroded and evaporated. So I don't know how that box wouldn't understand. Even if it was like metal. Wait, hold on. Does it stay there? I don't. Oh no, it does actually stay there. Well, apparently it's acid proof. Either way, it is kind of interesting. I guess Yellowface eventually comes back and gets it. So that's wrong. That's my bad. Pub Boss, for some reason, mad at mean to Pin. Pin does not have arms. Gelatin switches back. And then we get to the challenge. So the challenge that takes up a solid 20 minutes of screen time. It's a doozy of a challenge. A gesture the text on screen, and the other ones have to guess it. Now, this challenge is very actual show-esque. A lot of challenges, right, in BFDI and BFDIA, they're completely bullshit. Like, go to the moon. That's a challenge, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like, you gotta, it's pretty interesting. But this challenge is actually relatively real. Like, this is an actual game that people play, charades, right? The only thing that is, of course, not real about it is that you die if you get it wrong. But there is a lot of talking going on in this. There's a lot of scenes to have to do with this challenge. Now, turns out that Woe Bunch is like very, very good at this challenge. Like, amazing at this challenge, to be honest. Like, Bommy and Nido just sort of pretty much solo everything, with the others also around them. Sometimes they get scammed a little bit, like when Pin has to gesture hands or whatever. But in general, they are very, very, very good at the challenge there, Woe Bunch. Meanwhile, Team No Name, as the team with the least members, of course, alive, struggle the most because there is just a lack of teams on the team. Because, like, if I'm not, because Golf Ball is stuck in the tree, and then there's Rise and Gelatin, which are struggling heavily, and then Tennis Ball, of course, gets absolutely griefed by the prompts of being hands and astrodophilic acid or whatever, right? So that's what's going on. Meanwhile, Free Smart is having an okay time. They're struggling quite a bit, but they usually manage to figure it out. Although the Woe Bunch is extremely good, yeah, but they get scammed like with Spongy, who that can't really do much about it, right? It's just the way it is sometimes. Free Smart eventually blows out a bubble, which is bubble, which is that's a thing that you could do sometimes in this show. They like create somebody. Like, you even saw this like ultra recently, T-20, where Fire Junior just spawns in out of a tiny fire, right? Like, I guess it can exist. It's just kind of like, it sort of is weird to the concept or anything else. Like any other piece of currency that what can coiny just transform into any piece of currency. Like, it's weird. Now we'll talk about the weird thing, the weird 3D land later, because that I don't even know what to say about that. But eventually, after they correctly play crazy charades there in Woe Bunch, yeah, Free Smart end up causing a mess. Because Ruby is trying to eat sweets and get the others to understand it. So flips everything on their side, because Ruby is just going absolutely mental, and ends up rolling down a hill. And eventually, while rolling down the hill, they get it right, and then they get a few other things right. and all of that jazz, except for somebody who gets eliminated, Book, because Book got blindfolded for reading lips, which is a thing that apparently multiple people can do now. Because Tennis Ball, I think, could do it as well, so that's a plot point that they've used up a lot. And in general, I'll say Book dies. I like the gag with Book dying. You know, it's like just the time for your opponent that gets ripped to absolute shreds. I like that. I like that. It's a good gag. Personally, um, then what else happened? So eventually, Freezewire ends up safe because they just broke the machine. There just wasn't really much else to do. Then Tennis Ball gets the acrylic acid and doesn't know how to get gelatin to guess it. So eventually decides to you be an inventor, be a good inventor, because that's the debate. Apparently, Gelatin called Tennis Ball bad inventor, so Tennis Ball's now mad. Then goes over and instead manages to build a thing that reflects on the moon to Golf Ball read it out and eventually get teleported in. However, Golf Ball did not understand the challenge because nobody told him, which means that well he can't do it right. Interesting enough, I don't know what reference Goldball is trying to make, because Goldball says something about an object show. I know that's a throwaway line that's supposed to be a reference to something. Like, it's just like this object show I've started to watch. And I wonder what I was talking about, because it's not an object show. Study here for 3 months. That BFDI. Are we talking about BFDIA? I don't know. No, because BFDIA starts with running away. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. Genuinely. Maybe it's Teapot. Because in Teapot, you just stand around waiting for a challenge. I guess I don't know what the throwaway line there is. I didn't really understand it perfectly. But eventually, after that, Tennis Ball gets sent back into the Crusher, and unfortunately, no. By the way, I'm glad to see that they're still doing completely irrelevant random 3D, like for the purposes of it. For like the shot of it going to Earth and then back down into Yo-Yo Land where Golf Ball is. Like, that is great, amazing. It keeps the spirit of BFDI. And a little bit worried because it hadn't quite shown up as much in the other episode. Like, it had, but only the previous things, of like the Yo-Yo City that was already made. The seeing something new made with that it is quite cool. Also, of course, now that we know about Teapot 20, anything that happens on the moon immediately becomes funnier because one is there. So, yeah, Book Red Lips. Okay, dude, I don't know what's going on in this otherworldly dimension, right? I have genuinely no idea. Like, they're in this sort of other world that's crudely 3D animated, and for some reason they're only capable of talking within, like, fancy English, or like very distinguished English or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. They're like, is that what happens in the afterlife? Because I mean, I guess we don't find out what happens to objects when they die. So maybe this is the this is the official object afterlife. Unless, do they find out where they? No, we don't. Like, eventually, until they get recovered. So eventually, everybody starts dropping in there when they dead, because we know in one scene, Fry's come in, then Corny comes in, and Nico, I think, Nico comes in. Um, then Golf Ball comes in at the end in the final scene. No, that jazz. They don't have to play by it. Like, apparently Fries doesn't, but everybody else does. But yeah, they're having sort of surrealist humor. Me personally, I'm honestly a fan of surrealist humor to an extent. Like, as long as it's not too surreal, I enjoy it. Because I know there's some surreal humor that's like kind of weird, where it makes so little sense that it's like it kind of stops being that funny because it's like, what is going on? But in this case, it's kind of funny. Like, nobody knows what any of it means, but sure, whatever, haha. you know, we'll take it. I'm presuming they're getting recovered next episode somehow, right? And eventually, just that scene will naturally end. But for one episode, pretty solid gag. They're like in hell or something, so I guess the objects go to hell. There you go. Discovered it today, right here. So it is the way that it is. American 5-cent denomination. This is so true. It is one of the bars Eventually, Tennis Ball and Gelatin flops again at guessing Tennis Ball after Godball's death due to Gelatin trying to think to call Tennis Ball the greatest inventor to ever exist, but eventually does it. Yeah, it's just kind of Tennis Ball just getting. There is trying to be a little bit of a story there going on with Tennis Ball, with the whole everybody thinks golf ball is the one. I'm just a sidekick to golf ball, which in a way it is true. A lot of the time, TB isn't really considered that much as a solo character. You know, there's these characters that arrive in a batch a lot of the time, right? Like golf ball and tennis ball, they're very rare to see them like without each other. So in a way, it's kind of like any member of Free Smart. You know, when are they solo? Very rarely is one of them completely alone in a different group of people. So yeah, with tennis ball, I see why a lot of people would say that, you know, in terms of elimination. So I'm not sure. I mean, we'll have to like see, I guess. In terms of the elimination, my prediction for this elim, um, this one's kind of complicated because there's not that many people to vote for. But in terms of the prize, I'd probably say Gelatin gets the prize. Gelatin has, I think, a lot of fans and also was a lot of comic in this episode. You know, a lot of comic relief, making jokes and stuff and being funny. And usually, I think being funny gets you the prize. You know, Dislikes is the meanest character. Golf ball or tennis ball could technically be. However, I don't think either of them did quite enough to gain it. So I think Fries would get eliminated here. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna go with Fries eliminated here for now because I don't know. I'm not really sure what else it would be. Then at the end they explained the line and all that stuff. Yeah, they explained the 3D, and that is BFDIA 9. And now, do I have critiques on this episode? Yes, I do. They had a lot. Like, this is the type of episode where you can tell it's wrong because in a way it is overwritten. They made a challenge that you can write a lot of jokes about. Like, if you imagine a writer's meeting that lasts a couple of hours, right, where they're just bouncing around ideas for words or challenges, you can come up with a lot of good things, a lot of good ideas. And that's kind of what happens in this episode. We see a lot of things being guessed, especially because it's a very one-on-one challenge, right? Like, if your team, if you're like Wobunch or whatever, like you have 6 people that need to go before, like you are allowed 6 total fails. Like it's a lot of people at the end of the day that you can afford to dip out on, and it ends up being a lot of total guess, especially if you're getting a lot of them correct, like Wobunch did. And in terms of like compilations of characters just getting stuff right, not mistaken, it's like 3 of them at least. 3 of those compilations, maybe 4, but I think it was 3, right? And it ends up being, yeah, just that kind of thing where it's maybe a bit overly long. It feels maybe mildly extended. I understand why it's extended because they had a lot of ideas, but it is mildly extended. I think when, like, for example, in an episode like the last one, that's 17 minutes, half the length, you can tell there's just aren't as many ideas to go with. Team No Name only tries out one idea, which is drive around in a car, right? Like, there isn't that much of a concept for this challenge. They do so many things. It's just the virtue of a good challenge, really. If they had challenges like this every episode, then yeah, sure, this would be the average and it would be there. But this episode feels mildly long because, you know, not every challenge is like this, and some others are way simpler and shorter. But either way, I think it makes a relatively enjoyable episode. It's also the 14th anniversary special. Is it? I mean, it's not. It's released on February 1st when the anniversary is on January 1st. When this episode released on BFDI 19, no, 19, BFDI 9 released. Then the title is back to being a sentence. which is interesting. Catch these hands is something that Fry said. So yet again, with titles, I honestly don't know what I would title these half the time, anyways. So titling these just a quote is like sure. I also know that sometimes I think A/B testing has sometimes been done a bit to title these videos. So yeah, just fair enough. Another tiny critique I have is that I don't like how they got rid of the headphones, to be honest, in this episode. It felt a little bit like it was sort of okay, we have done enough with this thing, and we kind of haven't been able to write it into anything for a while now, or at least don't want to write it into anything for a while now to not make it drawn out. So we're just gonna get rid of it, but with any reason imaginable, right? So it's a little bit of a rush way to get rid of it. It's just like, oh, hey, it's soluble to water. Like, okay, cool that it's soluble to water, but why would you have water? Like, the water droplet thing that you magically just have now that you didn't have before and don't have any reason to have. Like, is gelatin, I don't know, submerged underwater and then boom, the headphones are gone. It's like, okay, fair enough. I guess it was soluble water. But like, it wasn't a natural cause that led to the headphones being removed, which I find pretty unfortunate because I think like it's it's cool and stuff. Like in BFDIA, one of the cool things about it is that the evolution, it feels so natural. The evolutions of characters and the evolutions of anything, because their designs sort of swap around based on what has just simply happened. Like a character can be metal for multiple episodes. Pin just has no limbs now, right? Because it's just like things are happening and it feels like it's an evolution of the show because we're in a different state every time. So sometimes when they like force a character out of a state just for the sake of it, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. It's not a big deal because we're talking about headphones that were meant to be like a one episode gag, and then eventually they didn't. This wasn't much to it. But yeah, in general, I am a pretty pretty big fan of the episode. As far as with the like, I guess ranking within this and the other ones, this, I think, is better than both BFDI 7 and BFDI 8. It's more interesting. Like, the only critiques I have is that it maybe felt a little long, but, like, a long episode isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with a long episode. It's just, sometimes it feels a little, like, it's a thing that you notice because it's a bit different to other things. But the fact that it isn't necessarily an issue. So, I don't really have a critique for it. I think it's pretty creative. They had a lot of, I think this is the type of episode where, like, I can feel that there was fun writing it. Like there was a lot. There's a lot of fun in who's written on it. And I also like Bommy. I like seeing Bommy actually get to talk within a challenge rather than just sort of be used as a tool. Because Bommy's one of those characters that gets used as a tool very often. So seeing a character that is a tool not be a tool is interesting. Also, we should hopefully get to see Corny again. I wonder if there's going to be two characters with a Corny voice. That they will probably have to retcon in some, well, not retcon. They will have to fix in BFDI 10 somehow, because if they don't, that would just be weird. Like both Nito and Coiny talking with a Coiny voice. Maybe with one episode they could get away with it, but it would have been it'd be quite complex. Also, as it goes with BFDIA, the distance between Goiki and Yo-Yo Land makes about as much sense as like anything. It doesn't make any sense. Like, how is Gelatin managing to shoot a laser beam weapon of like mass destruct, not well, master, like weapon on the specific characters to respawn the character? Like, wow, that is an absolute insane overstretch. Isn't even able to get out the glue for a golf ball, but did manage to reach it. I mean, or like the only way ten Tanspot ends up communicating with golf ball is by sending like a beam to the moon. Like it's pretty crazy, to be honest, how that gap has been treated. Because again, I don't know, I just find it funny because BFDA 5 is such a thing. Getting there is such a challenge that it takes 5 episodes, and it's super interesting because like now it's just treated as nothing, but it's weird because it's treated like in such a like easy way. Like, oh, it's no deal, just go there. when BFDI 5 and the entire reason why the show I probably ended up being mildly cancelled is like ultra weird. Second note I find interesting, they mentioned how Bomby won the prize while I was looking again, which is a thing that, of course, the only time they've ever also done that is with Pop One. Pop One ended up being eliminated. Now, Bomby didn't actually do anything with that information, but I think that sometimes these are methods to maybe try to nudge viewers in a certain direction, you know, going like, oh, hey, you know how you're always voting Bomby? Well, we would enjoy if you did a bit of variating in that plan, right? So, even though Kurt Balmy barely won here, so I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I guess it is one of those situations that I noticed. The intro also has returned back to its Goiki, so I guess there's like a Yo-Yo Land version of the intro, and there's a Goiki version of the intro now, which makes sense. I don't remember if in the Yo-Yo Land version of the intro, the characters are in a different state, like if they're the metal versions of themselves. Actually, I think I have to go check, because other than that, I don't really know, but either way, it is one of the things. No, they're not different versions of themselves. All right, I just checked. But yeah, so they have Yo-Yo Land version, they have Koiki version. That's fair. That's cool. I enjoy the variants depending on where we are. One of my favorite things that happens in intros is when intros swap around depending on what's going on. Like I love it when like they did this gag a bunch in BFB where like the BFB intro it changes depending on who is currently in the show. Like when the announcer takes it back or whatever. Like it's an evolving intro for an evolving show, and I am a big fan of stuff like that. So yeah, that's always one of my favorite things. So even if it's a small swap, I think it is rather nice. Okay, I tried to check if there's anything else I wanted to say. There really isn't. So that is going to be my review of BFDIA 9. It's a fun episode for a fun challenge. That was nice. Yeah, you know, I hope they did more challenges of this type, you know, like challenges that give a lot of ideas for things that might happen in it, because you know, like this challenge, it really felt like there was a lot of creativity going on within it, because there was a lot going on in the challenge. So that is I'm a big fan of BFDA 9, and I see why the video got a lot of views. First of all, it's longer, and it seems like the length of the episode does somewhat correlate with how many views it has, because people that watch it fully give it more retention, and YouTube enjoys longer videos that people watch for longer. That's kind of how it goes, right? So yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I think that's all, and that for BFDIA's reviews today. As stated, that was the episode of today for Object Catchup. We watched the first few BFDIA episodes post return. I must say, it's honestly kind of difficult to talk about them. Like, not because I don't have stuff to say, but it feels like the stuff I have to say is so unorganized, even more than in some of the rambles for other stuff. I feel like my reactions and thoughts to videos of BFDIA have been way more like uncompact than it has been for some other shows that I've talked about, like T-Paw or LBS or anything so far. So it has been a little bit difficult, and I apologize if any of what I've been saying makes no sense. I'm sure a lot of it feels weird, but like overall, it is certainly a thing that I like to point out, as like I for some reason had less coherent thoughts when thinking of BFDIA. But hey, I want to be completely honest, and this is the format of the series. Reaction analysis right after watching, so that makes the analysis unique. You know, it's something that only I have thought of. I took no other opinion in forming this opinion. It is entirely unique. I mean, if I sit around and scripted it, that's what it would be. And with that, that's it for today. So, you know, we had time to catch up a little bit on the past because of no new Object Show releases today, but I'm sure there will be more to come in the next few days. But for the meantime, that's how this is going. When there isn't much new to talk about, we talk about the older stuff like BFDIA. So now that we're caught up a little bit longer, we can head into the next day. Goodbye.